to be identified with thoughts, with your thinking process, is to be in the trance of separation. It is to believe that you are the thinker of the thoughts, that there is a separate person there that is having those thoughts. And so when thinking happens, you think, I'm the one that is having that thought and I'm believing what it says. It is about me, it is personal. So that's to be identified with thoughts. So how do we start to break this identification with thinking? There's a lot of different practices you can do, and I'll give you some examples in this video, and I suggest to try them out and see what works for you. The most direct way to start to break disidentification, to break identification with thoughts, is to go straight to the core of the issue, which is to see if the one that you unknowingly and unconsciously believe is there, the separate self, the person, fill in your name, that one that you, if you haven't questioned it, you think is having the thoughts, that it is that one's thought process that is going on, and actually look for them and see if you can find that one. This is the most direct way to come at identification, is to see that the one that we think is thinking is not actually there. So I can tell you the answer, that it is to look and not find is what we're doing, but we still need to look and find out for ourselves. That is the trick to inquiry work, and it's ongoing. So it's not enough to do it once. We need to, each time we see we've fallen back into the trance again, we've started believing our thoughts again, we've started to believe that we're the one that is having the thoughts, we've started identifying again. And so to question, to notice that has happened again. So who is the thinker? Where is this separate someone hiding out in here that is having all these thoughts? Can I actually locate them? And look in your direct experience, try to find them, go on a hunt for them. Where would they be located? Where are they hiding? Are they hiding in the head? Where are they? Are they in the body? Where is this separate someone? Where is the thinker of the thoughts? Where actually are they? That is the most direct way to start to disidentify with thinking, but there's other things that we can do as well. So there's two overall illusions of functioning that are happening through the trance of separation. One is that we're believing that there's a separate someone that is having the thoughts. That's us. That's me thinking those thoughts, and they are my thoughts. So that's a part of it that I just spoke about. And that's why coming at trying to find that one and not finding it will be quite revealing if we keep at it. But the other part is that we believe what the thought processes are telling us. So who is believing it? Nobody, because there's nobody there. But there is a believing that is happening. And so there's two parts. There's one part is that we believe we're a separate someone, the thinker that is having the thoughts. And that goes unnoticed unless we look for it and inquire into it. We could go a whole life without ever having that type of questioning happen. It's probably not going to happen spontaneous. It might, but we sort of need to go and look for that and be interested and intrigued. And the other part is all of that thinking that's going on. We're believing what it says. There is a believing of the thought processes going on, and that is what causes our suffering. A large part of our suffering is because we're believing things that make us hurt, believe things about ourselves or about the world or about the state of politics or about people that we love, whatever it's saying. When we buy into that and we believe it, we are not just asleep and in the trance, in the dream, but we are in a prison of our own self-imposed suffering. And it's also completely unnecessary. And we find this out through doing certain practices to break this part of how the mind functions. And so we can play around with this part and not take things so seriously if we can, because when we keep things to ourselves, we don't inquire into it, we keep it hidden from ourselves, it feels very serious and shameful, perhaps, the thought processes that are going on. It's going to be vary from person to person what the conditioning is in there, but it might be embarrassing, or you might really dislike what is being said in there and taking it very personally, or feeling shame about it, and it's truly not necessary. It's an automatic thought process that has been activated and can't be helped, and just wants to be seen for what it actually is. So firstly, that there is nobody there that is having those thoughts. That was the first part. And now the content itself, it's wanting to be looked at and seen to be that it's not necessary to believe it. So any type of breaking beliefs will work on this part of how mind works, certainly. Questioning if it's true. Is it really true? That thought I just had about the state of the world, that made me feel bad, that got my attention, it started to make me suffer. What it said about myself or about other people or the world. And now I feel bad. Is it actually true, though? Do I have to believe it? Is there anyone forcing me to believe that? Just because we think it's going on inside our head, we think that we're obliged to believe what it says and that it must be true. But is it actually true? Is it? Find out for yourself. So as we start to inquire into it, we realize we don't actually have to believe what is being said in there. It doesn't matter what is being said in there. We do not have to believe it. And that is the trick to disidentifying and to getting relief from what is being said, and to waking up and to feeling better and to not suffering as much. So this is a big thing to realize, that believing our thoughts is what causes our suffering. It truly does, and that it is not compulsory. And that's the part that you can start to let go of and see, I really don't have to buy into what it is saying. I don't have to place so much weight on it. I don't have to give it power or take it so seriously. And then we can do processes to just start to illuminate the thought processes. So some of my favorites when I was seeking, probably my favorite was to say out loud what was going on in the mind, if it was appropriate to do so. You're driving by yourself or you're walking by yourself, but say it out loud, and then you see just how funny mind is and the weird things that it says. So, and it stops you from taking it so seriously. You get to see the repeating patterns that it does. You get to see that it's a bit of a joke, really, and that you can laugh at it and laugh at yourself, and that there's no need to believe it. It takes the pressure off. And so I'd suggest to try it if you haven't tried this before, is just to say out loud, particularly if it's something that sounds very serious. And you can play with this, you can put on accents, you can make it however you want to make it less serious. But when we keep it inside and we believe it, we don't tell anyone, it feeds it and it makes it seem very, very serious. As soon as we say it out loud, we see it doesn't matter what it's saying. It could be very hurtful to yourself, to someone else, a judgment. It could be about the world itself, or about a big statement about men or women. But notice it's just conditioning. It's a conditioned response. It's a trained response. The mind is like a recording device, and it was trained to give that exact response at that time when those particular buttons were pressed. You don't need to take it so seriously. And so this helps to lighten the mood around it. And in that, we start to let go of the conditioning, because we realize, I don't have to believe that. Even if it's something really terrible, I really don't have to. It's not compulsory. And we start to let that go. So that was one of my favorite techniques for this part of letting go of mind. And another one is to categorize, and again, make this your own. I'll just give you some examples, but as thoughts come up, you can put them into a category or label them, generally speaking, and it shows you again how the mind is working there. It shows you how funny it is and repetitive, and not to take it seriously. So it does all these same things to help give you good perspective, to help you to let go of the conditioning. And so for this one, say for me, I would have thinking about doing a teaching. So I just noticed that happening. It's starting to do a teaching, and you just label it teaching. So we're not judging it, we're not pushing it away, we're not doing anything with it other than we're just giving it a label. We're giving it a label as to what type of thought process is going on there. So it would be teaching. And then you'll find typically that stops the process and it just sort of dissolves. And then another thought process comes up. Maybe this is a judgment or a critique about someone else. So again, we don't want to buy into it. We don't want to push it away. We just label it. So we go judgment. Right? No hard feelings. Doesn't matter. It's a judgment. That's what the mind's doing right now. It's critiquing, judging. We notice it sort of floats away. It doesn't have any sort of impact then. We're not berating ourselves. We're not feeling guilty. We're not feeling shame. We've just labeled it. That's what mind's doing right now. It's judging. Okay, cool, judging. We just label it. Perhaps a thought process comes that feels very dark and very wounded, and it's self-harm. It's, I want to hurt myself. So again, we just label it. So it's like, oh, self-harm. That's what type of thought process is it? Just label it. It's doing the self-harm programming right now. So we're just sort of getting interested, and it's almost like a detachment, but it's not a resistance. We're not pushing it away. We're not feeling bad about it, because that won't work. We're thinking, and we're allowing it to be there. And in that, we just see it for what it is, which is just a programmed response, and that we don't have to make it into anything more than that. We don't have to believe it. We don't have to take it seriously. We don't have to do what it says. So it's a self-harming thought. Okay, self-harming thought. Cool. Wait for the next thought. So you can do this however you want. You could do it in a semi-meditative state and labeling the types of thoughts that are coming. It could be entertaining thought. It's telling a joke. It's trying to entertain me. All right, so we're not doing a process of why is the mind doing that and going into some deep contemplation for this practice. It's more just a labeling that stops the mind typically in its tracks, and also just shows us, wow, it's just like a programmed machine. Here it goes again. And then it goes back around again, and here we are back at judging again. Here we are at self-hatred again. Okay, there it goes. Cool, it's passed. What's next? This is a really useful, it helps with a lot of things, but it's also very useful to see how the mind there for you is operating, and really helps us to see the patterns of it. And so that, combined with saying things out loud, or another way to do that is to write down what is being said. If you don't feel like saying it out loud, you can write down what mind is saying, and that can also be very interesting and help you to see the patterns of mind. It's very helpful to understand how your particular mind is working, the tricks that it does to put you back in the trance again, the just all the different ways that it operates, the avoidance strategies. So like entertaining, like I mentioned, that can very much be an avoidance strategy for feeling pain. And so you learn, when I start to feel bad, the mind goes into telling a joke or some type of singing or performance going on in there. And it's been doing that probably since childhood to stop you from how bad you're feeling when something's arising. And so all of this is such useful information. We're really wanting to become acutely aware of what the mind is doing without judging it. And we can very much write all these things down. That'll be useful information to help keep this conscious. So to learn how minds work in general and psychology, certainly helpful for awakening, But what's more important is to learn specifically what your mind does to trick you, to put you back in the trance. What does it do? What are the tricks it does? There's usually some things within us where we, as we go further along on the awakening path, we may be able to stay awake more and more with whatever is thinking doesn't trip us. It doesn't let us fall back into the dream. We become more conscious the further along we get, but there's usually some things in there that they're the things that get us. Could be a thought about, it's something that we're very emotionally attached to. It's something very wounded, like the mother wound, the father wound, abandonment wound, thinking about something hard that happened in childhood. So perhaps you can stay awake in meditation. You're not attaching to thoughts during the day. Perhaps you're not attaching to thoughts most of the time. But if someone mentions, how's your mum going, all of a sudden, back you go. So try to find out what those specific things are for you. And then they're usually an indicator of something that wants to be healed. And so you go and you do therapy, inner child work on those very deep things that keep repeating, because that's an indication that we need to go deeper than just breaking a belief. If it's something sticky like that, that really pulls you under, in a sense, pulls you unconscious, it's likely to be a wound that wants to be healed from the past. So I hope that gives you a few ideas on how to start disidentification with mind. But the very first step, which I probably should have mentioned first, is that we need to be able to get in the witnessing position. We need to be able to access awareness of the content of the mind, of what's all happening here. And so if all of this sounds very good to you, but you cannot do that yet, then my suggestion is to work on trying to access awareness. And one of the nice ways to do this is to imagine yourself at the movie theater, the cinema, and you are sitting there looking at the screen, and all of the thoughts of the mind, of your mind, are going on the screen. They're here, and they're images and all different things are going on there. But notice how you're also watching that. See that you can notice that there's two things happening. There is the thoughts that are coming on the screen, which we can just call the content of your mind. And there's also you watching it. Now, this is actually an awakening shift that happens. So prior to being able to do that and seeing that there's two things happening, there is a watching, there is an awareness of, and then there is the content that is being watched. Until you can do that, all the other practices I said before are not going to be relevant, because you need to be able to do this bit first. And so if this applies to you, then this is what you work on first before doing the other parts. So you see if you can notice for yourself there is these two separate things going on. There is this witnessing, and there's also the content. Prior to that, it was totally mixed in together, and we couldn't tell that that was happening. It was totally melded together. Awareness with the content was totally lost in it 100%. So we're trying to pull that apart, and that is probably the first shift that happens with awakening. And it's a permanent shift in itself, and that is awareness pulls itself out enough to notice the content of itself. And it feels internally or experientially like there's two different parts to ourselves, or maybe more. But therefore we can start to access awareness, is a quick way of saying it. We can see that there is awareness of the content, and before I didn't know that was there. Something shifted, and it's like, yeah, that is an awakening shift that happened, no doubt, a big important one, the first one, so that you can then do the awakening process and do all the practices that I speak of.